You're listening to the REITE Club podcast, where the focus is all about helping you grow your real estate investment portfolio and live the life you want to live. Come grow with us and join our community at thereiteclub.com. And now your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.
You know, it's great to get into something, but how do you manage things when things get ugly? Because I always tell my clients too, you know, your real estate shouldn't be exciting. And if it got exciting, it's probably for the wrong reason. You want to have a great tenant, you want to have a great property, and you don't want to have to be on the phone dealing with problems all the time. So I like boring real estate. And it's nice to know that we do have laws and a board that is supportive of protecting that asset.
That's excellent. Yes, I agree with you. And it's even bad for the tenant. Like in some provinces where it's really hard, landlords do become slumlords because they can't afford to fix anything, because they can't increase rent, or they have bad tenants that are not paying, and there's just no recourse. And Melissa, you're an investor yourself. So can you give us an idea of your portfolio? Like what do you invest in? This will be very telling.
So my husband and I started on this path about 13 years ago now. We don't have a huge portfolio. We did things at our own pace. We started out shortly after getting married. So, you know, we factored in a couple of kids along the way and have careers and a life. So we currently own 14 properties, and we do self-manage everything. And we were very, very strategic in how we planned out our strategies. And of course, it's always market specific. And we've been through a few different changes with lending rules and, you know, market changes and this and that. But we, in the course of 10 years, we were able to build and pay off our dream home.
Wow, that's amazing. Congrats.
Thank you. And our real estate portfolio, it gives us the freedom to enjoy times of family. We spend a lot of time camping, and we have a lot of dirt bikes and quads, and we go out into the bushes, and real estate has given us the ability to have that time with our family.
So if someone wanted to invest in Alberta or in Edmonton specifically, what would you advise them to do? Now, say it's me, and I'm saying, okay, Melissa, I don't really know much about Edmonton. I really want to invest out there, but I don't know anything about the city, and I'm thinking maybe a duplex to start, maybe something I could convert to a fourplex, or it doesn't have to be. What would you say to me? Where would you, how would you work with me? How would you have me start on this little journey? Because, you know, as an investor, especially when you go into a new market, it can be scary, right? Because you're dealing with so many unknowns. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. And how do you know it until you know it? That kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. Typically what I like to do is just sit down and have a really straightforward question. I like to know what my clients' goals are. And there's a lot of misnomers and a lot of information online about real estate investing. And as you guys know, you can't apply certain rules of one area to another. And I think that that's the most critical component, is really understanding, okay, I want to get into this market, but I don't know about this area. And so that's part of what Melissa's Deals does. So I always tell people, just sign up on there. I have people who will sit on there for 6 months. And then all of a sudden they'll pop up and they'll say, okay, I want to come and look at real estate. And what it does is it helps people to understand, okay, I know now what it costs to buy a rundown property and renovate it. I now know what it costs to put in a basement suite. I now know what it costs to buy a brand new turnkey property in a neighborhood that I want to be in. So the biggest part is not knowing where to buy it and getting distracted and attracted by what appears to be a deal that at the end of the day could end up costing you more than the deal's worth because you bought in a wrong location or the wrong type of tenant profile is going to live there. So the properties that are in Melissa's Deals are ones that I would actually buy myself. Now, personally, I invest in Edmonton in multiple different locations, and I also invest in surrounding towns. I find the bedroom communities that surround Edmonton have been really great for good quality tenants, and I don't typically see a lot of rental movement there. Great properties. A challenge in that area could sometimes be property managers who don't always want to go out to those areas. But that's just an example of how I teach my out-of-towners what to look for, how to understand it, and how to evaluate it.
Yeah, and you did address a point that I had in mind. So since there's no rent control, there's fewer rules, I find that it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So vacancy, tenants can leave a bit more easily than here. So because they know they can negotiate a bit more, there's different things. So how do you address that? Like vacancies, are there things you put into place, or because that would be something very new for me. If I did like Laurel, I want to invest in Edmonton, I'm not used to vacancy like this. Usually I have waiting lists.
Yeah, this market honestly has been great. But honestly, in the 13 years I've been doing this, it's extremely rare that I'll ever have a vacancy. I've had plenty of tenants who are like, okay, I'm 4 months into my lease and I have to break it for whatever reason. And in dealing with that with my tenants, my number one response is, okay, I don't need to force you to live in my property. That's not what I'm trying to do here, but you have to understand that we do have a legally binding contract in place. So, Mr. Tenant, I'm going to work really hard to find a replacement tenant. I need you to make sure that that property is immaculate, because as soon as I find a replacement tenant, I will release you from your lease. And if you clean it and give it back to me in perfect condition that I gave it to you in, I'll return your damage deposit. And almost every time I get keys turned over, I get it released and everybody's happy. So this business, as much as we buy and sell real estate, it's a people business. So you have to really navigate, those emotions of people. And so if they're, for whatever reason, they have to move, it's never a benefit to try to make them stay. And the minute you say, well, you legally have to pay out the lease, now you have a fight on your hands, and it's negative. So we always, reiterate and reinforce what is legally expected, and then put the sugar on top with what you're going to do for them to help them. And it works every time.
Yeah, and even things like, the difference between Alberta and Ontario, for example, is damage deposit. Well, gee, we can't have a damage deposit in Ontario. That's illegal. Can't. Nope.
Oh, really?
Nope, you cannot ask for a damage deposit. Nope. So there you go. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? But you're right.
So typically, a damage deposit here is the equivalent of 1 month's rent.
Oh, well, we can ask for first and last month's rent, but we cannot apply it against damage. No.
Mm. Wow.
It's just different strokes for different folks. That's just the way it goes. But I think you are right when you say that investing in real estate is not about the property or the structure. It's about the people, because without the people, we wouldn't be buying the real estate, would we?
No, it'd be pointless. You're really just renting out air. The bank owns it. You're just releasing out a box of air.
Yeah, and you're trying to make some profit on it so that you can create your own wealth, because you're providing a service. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. And I actually talk with my clients a lot about that, is that, you have to look at your real estate portfolio as your business. You're going to marketplace. What does your product look like? Identify, any person in sales, if you've gone to any type of sales training, you're expected to identify who is your perfect customer. Well, do the same thing with your tenant. Who do you want to rent to? What does that look like to you? What do those people visualize them? What do they do for work? Where do they go to school? Like, what does that look like? Because that is going to make it easier for you to communicate with that client, that customer. And treat your product well. Take good photos of it. You don't go on Amazon and see a dark, nasty image and go, oh, I want to buy that. So, I always say present your product and you'll have good clientele.
Thanks for listening to the REITE Club podcast and joining our community of real estate investors online at thereiteclub.com, where the focus is about helping you grow. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks from your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.